So, welcome to segment 3.
I never did talk about soil.
Yeah.
You brought up a good point about soil. I'll let you have that.
Well, my thing is that this conversation that's been happening with people that care about this place has constantly been back and forth. You know, we look at some of the people that were on site when we got involved and what their focus and agenda was, and we look at some of the people that are now on the site and what their focus and agenda are, and then you look at people outside of us that are looking in, that are dipping their toe in the water, what they'd like of us. And when I say us, meaning the people that are the stewards of this land, right? We don't own anything, we just borrow it. I mean, I say all the time, we don't really own anything, we borrow it from our children. Leave the world a better place. Okay, so you have what it used to be, and this is what it used to be, in a single purpose facility. Okay, well that's not what this is. And then you have the next stage that says this is a bunch of multiple owners of a farm all trying to farm. Well, that doesn't necessarily, as you said in earlier conversation, that doesn't pay the bills, because it's too hard to get it's too hard to get 40 people to pay what each person needs to pay. It's easier with 40, to be honest.
Yeah.
But if you have 5, that's pretty daunting, because this place, unless it's a high value crop, you're going to be hard pressed to produce enough to cover the nut of a place this big in Wisconsin, with heating and electricity and whatever. So then you get to what this is, or what you wish it to be, and then these outside influences that say, okay, we know it's not going to be this, we understand it can't be that, we know where you want it to go, we'd like to be involved, but we'd like to influence some of your decisions. And I'm wondering why, or what your thoughts are with joint venture. Instead of investment, instead of ownership, joint venture. Joint venture, a good example of a joint venture, for me, would be, what if somebody wants to take the notoriety of this site and, as a co-producer of food, say, I want to set up shop here and literally retail food to the masses. I don't want to grow it here. I'll move the stuff you grow here through the store. What do you say to the person that walks up to you and says, I want a joint venture with you, I'd like to put a boutique grocery store?
Well, the question before that was, what's the motive? If you said they want to alter the direction of the whole site or their store.
What I'm saying is that this used to be a single purpose facility. Yeah, there was 150 people here, but it was a single purpose facility operating for a single entity. Then you have what you've been doing with it is trying to make it available to multiple farmers. And then you discuss that the economics get in the way, because you can't make enough money at a small scale with urban farming to justify the cost of urban farming if the city isn't giving you a break on, if you're not getting some kind of break. A true farmer gets breaks. They get, we have 40 acres and our taxes are $74 on 40 acres because it's agricultural land. The taxes on this place are probably $3,000-$4,000 for 3 acres. You spread that over 12 months, you got to absorb that. You take the utilities, you got to absorb that. You got to take the chlorinated water that you have to dechlorinate to use it. Those are all costs that can't be absorbed. So one of the models is have other streams of revenue that are not necessarily directly related to farming or animals, and joint venture. So,
but it has to complement, or at least collaborate with the farming.
Right.
So if it's a grocery store,
well, very boutique grocery store, limited, not canned goods and all that. Just very limited things that are produce, fresh meats, and fish. Very boutique.
There's some canned goods like beans that are healthy and.
Yeah, but I'm saying, from a boutique standpoint, let's say that person just wanted to be in that space of produce, fresh produce, you know, off season, as much as grown local as you can, fresh meats and fish grown local. So
Does the investor want to be the entrepreneur that just has the store? Do they want to be part of the team that is directing the whole vision of the site at 30,000 feet?
in a joint venture, I think in a joint venture you get the best of both worlds, because you get the partner. They're not really partners. They have a vested interest in being successful, but they're not an island, meaning that they're reciprocating in the mission. So let's say this boutique store complements the idea of, you know, a peaceful place to be. You know, you don't need a hectic grocery store. You know, grocery stores are not quiet places. They're busy and bustling. But boutique type places, they're calming. You go in there and you can smell your food. They're not so big that the floors smell like bleach and there's, you know, 16,000 watt lights illuminating everything. You go in there and you have a very calming shopping experience. So when you're getting your food, you're comfortable. And there are places like that.
Yeah, I think it fits. I mean, small businesses on site succeeding, paying rent would alleviate, or at least hopefully get to break even on insurance, taxes, utilities, everything else, to alleviate that pressure off the farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can eventually long term, I drew these like little red boxes of where small businesses could be on site.
Right.
The rest of it could all be farm, and then say that's enough space for 100 farmers. Mm-hmm. You now then get to, if this is successful and it's driving traffic and these farmers are producing food that is directly, like, they're guaranteed to get bought out by this grocery store or a cafe, whatever. That's an incentive for a farmer to be here. And if it's a great community farming wise, then essentially the natural laws of just human nature, the best, strongest will survive. Like the best farmers, the people that get along the best, collaborate the best, will be allowed on site. And so yeah, small businesses is definitely part of the model.
What about nonprofits?
Yeah.
Nonprofits operating on the site. Do they pay rent, or how do you see them fit in?
If we have enough small businesses that are profitable and breaking even, I think nonprofits could be on site potentially for free if they're doing something good like education. And it depends on if they need a supervisor on our part. Maybe they have to, maybe it's a small fee, but I think there's room for for-profit and nonprofit.
So
what do you think?
I think that the term it isn't used as much as it used to be, but I think the site looks and feels to me like an incubator site. It's entrepreneurial, but it's also an incubator. So it's an incubator for nonprofits, it's an incubator for entrepreneurials, it's an incubator for educational projects. But there needs to be when you go to that CSR or the CRS,
there's a vibe.
What I think is that the pitch to like a Kohl's or a Walmart is that we are in a part of the community that isn't currently supported by big food places, food stores. The community needs it, but it also needs the dirt. It needs the farm. It needs to grow. It needs that. So the CSR to me is not anybody's investment in a particular part of the farm per se. It's the idea that they're contributing to a site that allows that to be there. So their CSR, their community, their corporate sustainable,
corporate social
corporate social responsibility is that they support this site, which supports nonprofits, supports education, supports entrepreneurs, supports incubated small businesses that, like a juice bar or or whatever. If you do that, I think the rising tide lifts your ship.
So you touched on three things that I want to talk about. So whatever small business would be on site, and the farmers, I think you have to consciously be aware of the vibration that they'd be bringing to the site, because it's going to change it.
Right.
So and that dovetails into culture. So I don't think you need to look at this neighborhood that there's problems. I think that you need to kind of create a space for culture to be cultivated, like through art, music, farming. Those are all very cultural things that can be cultivated. The businesses on site, I think, need to be conscious of that culture as well. You could just come in with a big brand, but there's no culture associated with that brand. You could come in with Dollar General, or I mean, if you come in with a brand, I feel like you need to somehow, I think you don't need to, but it would be smart to somehow allow the culture to be.
Oh, I think you have to, yeah. You have to be respectful of the community. I mean, you can't come in,
but
all of it.
This culture, I mean, we're in 55th and Silver Spring. The culture is predominantly African American.
Yeah.
But I feel like a farm does not have to be, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into just African American culture, because it's farming. If you do include a woofing house,
education,
and education, you can have every culture on site, which creates almost another culture of its own. You have Asian culture, African American culture, Caucasian culture, Hispanic. If you have all of that, they all grow different foods, they all have different diets, they all have different music, art.
Yep.
But the last thing, CSR, I don't think CSR is necessarily affiliated with the culture thing. It's more affiliated with a global, like, we need to start redeveloping our cities to somehow, it's hard. It's almost like you have to come at it backwards with people. You can't really say, I lost my train of thought on that. CSR is more global. It's like you have to create spaces that almost passively get people to start being healthier, being more environmentally conscious, and happier. I mean,
But you can't be tone deaf.
What does that mean?
Tone deaf is if you put a Starbucks here. There's a reason there isn't a Starbucks here, because it's culturally, either there, it's a dangerous conversation to go into, especially with two very white men from the suburbs, when we're sitting in a place where we're trying to say that we know better what this place needs. So the CSR, a Kohl's or a Walmart, isn't going to get behind something that could come back at them as tone deaf, meaning, what were you thinking? Why are you paying for XYZ type initiative?
Unless you go the full other way. Let's entertain Starbucks.
Starbucks actually isn't a bad example.
I reached out to Starbucks, they told me no.
Right. But what would be nice to know is why they told you no. That would be awesome. If you could get Starbucks to ever tell you why they said no. Because
they have it just down to a T of what every Starbucks looks like.
Right,
and it's just
right. And they're tone deaf, so they're not. How are they responding to a community if their place has to look like this? Right?
You just have to be so careful of coming into a community and saying, you have things wrong with you, we're going to fix it.
Right, I agree.
I don't think that's the approach. I think but say it was Starbucks. Say Starbucks came in here and said they're going to run the coffee shop. That would be the most unique Starbucks on the planet. because they would be attached to this farm, and maybe they start serving eggs with the chickens on site, and they start incorporating the vegetables on. I mean, they don't really have vegetables in, but look at McDonald's, kitty corner from us. If you completely go to that fourth phase of that evolution of like urban, wild, rural, and these big brands kind of get on board with that, of like, we need to change what we're doing. We're massive brands, and we've evolved to figure out what works financially because we're capitalists, and we've figured out this makes money, and obviously we're successful. Look at McDonald's, like Starbucks, they're everywhere, but now they're becoming socially conscious. Is like, okay, we're successful, but now we're kind of fucking our planet up. Like, all our operations are not sustainable, so how do we fix that? Imagine if this model, you just now look at the whole neighborhood as the model.
Yeah.
And you include the McDonald's, maybe Starbucks isn't on site, and you maybe even include the House of Corned Beef over here, and this farm grows food that goes to these bigger brands. Maybe those bigger brands say, okay, next time we develop a McDonald's, we need a 3-acre farm down the road, or we need space to grow our food this close so that the food doesn't travel 15,000 or 1,500 miles to the McDonald's. It's literally, they have the farm right there. And
you know, it's, yeah. And what's interesting is that Starbucks, for all of its social consciousness and its fair trade, they buy fair trade coffee beans and they pay fair wage to all their employees, they still sell $7 cups of coffee. And you mentioned dollar store before, and it's almost like we're apologetic when we talk about the type of business or the type of store that this neighborhood deserves. This neighborhood deserves what any other neighborhood deserves. The reality is that this, you're being, not you, but it is again tone deaf, and Starbucks knows this, to say we're bringing a place that you can buy $7 cups of coffee into your neighborhood where the mean income is substantially less than maybe 6 miles down a road in Bayshore. So where Starbucks would win is if they had a $1 cup of coffee, which is why McDonald's exists, because they have $1 meals. And we could get into a whole conversation about cheap isn't necessarily good, and that deserts.
There's that social element of like, I want to pay $7 for my coffee because it makes me feel higher status than buying my $1 coffee.
Yeah, they deserve every community deserves a nice place to go. Every community deserves this place.
Yeah.
The reality is that if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it. You got to give the path. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you an example of where I became really aware of the difference between what I want and what I can afford. Is we went to, every kid likes to ride on games, right? And Marriott's Great America, back in the day when it started in the late 70s, I think maybe early 80s. They built this big complex down in northern Illinois, and you want to go there and you want your parents to take you there, and you're 15, 16 years old, and it's, I don't know at the time, it's $20 for a day pass, and you get to ride as many rides as you can. And then you get the reality check where you got the little, and they don't do them as much anymore, where the churches used to have little church festivals. There'd be 3, 4, there'd be a tilt-a-whirl, and there'd be, a zipper, and there'd be something. And you literally came face to face with the idea that, yes, that's a place that's available to everybody, but affordable not to everybody.
Right.
And so my father took us to the church festival, and we got $3 of rides. But we wanted the $20 day pass of Great America. So the rides are kind of the same, the price of admission. So I think if we do that, you still got to have the
fair price of admission.
Fair price. You still got to have a price that they deserve this. They deserve this.
It's so hard in America where everything stems from capitalism, where you almost have to go backwards on that. And like, a lot of problem. I'm reading the sequel to that, Limits to Growth, right now, which is the next 40 years. One of the biggest indicators of social unrest is financial inequality. People just compare, and they're saying, well, he's rich, I'm not, I'm unhappy. So then and how do you kind of get closer to equal? But it's just that never end, and capitalism doesn't make it easy, because
capitalism, capitalism has always been, capitalism is everywhere, even in countries that aren't capitalistic per se. There's still there's the haves and the have-nots anyway. You can go in any country, their economic order still has rich and poor. And it's actually in capitalism, at least you have the chance of breaking away from it. In some countries, in some cultures, the rich will always be rich and the poor will always be poor. I still believe that America is still the kind of place that you can have a place like this and make it available to everybody, rich and poor, and just give them different paths to it. I mean, if somebody wants that $7 cup of coffee with Starbucks coffee beans, maybe you hybrid a coffee shop where you get Starbucks, willing to let their coffee be sold next to Folgers. And right now, if you have a Starbucks franchise, you can't sell anybody else's brand. You can't sell Folgers. You can't sell a cup of Folgers next to one of their Starbucks, fair trade, whatever.
I feel like that would make people's heads just spin if that happened.
But if Starbucks truly was trying to not be tone deaf,
right,
that's what Starbucks would do.
But you'd have the people going in there trying to have their fancy coffee, and then they would just force them to say, I could get my coffee for $1, but I'm going to pay $7 for it. And I would be interesting to see which one people do.
Well, yeah, I mean, when this thing gets fully open, when this thing's fully operational and people are coming here to have a meeting or some spoken word, or they're just trying to chill, if you don't create a coffee shop, or you don't create an environment where you got the $1 cup for the guy that can afford the $1 cup, and you got the $7 for the one that wants to get fancy, that's been going on forever. When I was 14 years old, you could go into a Boy Blue or whatever it was, and they had the $1 sundae, or they had the 19-cent ice cream cone. Well, I assure you, my dad never bought us the $1 sundaes. We got the 19-cent ice cream cones. But it was a treat to be able to go buy that $1 sundae. When I finally got a job and I was 16, I went in there and I bought myself a hot fudge sundae, and I didn't get my 19-cent ice cream cone. Same thing here. Those folks that want the enjoyment of this space and this place, you don't want to hold them back because of the cost of admission.
Right. Especially kids, and I've talked to some community leaders, and it's frustrating because these kids want to go somewhere, but it's a $5 admission, and as an entrepreneur, you're like, oh, it's just $5, but some kids don't have $5.
Is a lot of money for a kid that doesn't have $5.
So I want to touch on this. So we're in America, right?
Yeah, we are.
In my eyes, America is a land of opportunity.
It still is. Yep.
So if you envision the farm as like a mini country, and
I do.
I think a key to having success, and also just like genuinely good success, would be having some form of systematic, healthy competition element of it, where you have the opportunity, but it's competition. There's winners and losers
within,
but you have the opportunity to win. Yeah, within. So maybe it's music, maybe it's farming, maybe it's somewhere. Maybe these businesses have some form of weekly competition that like you have to win to get it. Maybe it's. I mean, you have to kind of think outside the box to recode this, because there's healthy competition in America. Everyone has the opportunity to win in this country, but some people, it's just like there's a lot of factors that are going into that, and so it's just like almost like the game is so big now. It's just like, what does winning really mean? But
I think winning for us is going to be like any kind of competition, like your alma mater is having a competition for the best idea. I think if you create a competition to come up with the best idea that serves people the best, that's a win-win for everybody. If everybody is striving to create a product, you know, a healthy product at a low price point, and somebody wins that competition, everybody wins.
Yeah. And so, if you...
Which is my goal, by the way.
Sorry, I was actually... Repeat that.
If the competition is to, if you tell somebody the winner who produces the most nutritious product at the lowest price point, the most affordable price point, everybody's a winner. So the consumer is the winner. You've created a highly nutritional product at a low input, everybody's a winner. Where you're going to lose is when somebody tries to not share that information, and then they go put their low cost, high value product and sell it at the same price as the competition is because they can get the price. That is capitalism without a heart. So if you've created a product, I think the greatest sin is if somebody can create a high value, low input, low cost product, and then they take advantage of the market and they gouge a consumer because the consumer only has one place to get that product, whether that's big tech, whether it's cable companies, or whether it's high value, low cost food. I think you're wrong to sell it at a high price just because you can.
So, honestly, I feel like this is the ace in the hole that is gonna... In America, the number one export is music and movies, entertainment. The rest of the world watches our movies, the rest of the world listens to our music.
Sure.
If you create this, and I've thought about naming the Netflix series Healthy Competition.
I like that name. That is healthy. That is a great name.
If you somehow create this entertainment element, it completely allows consumers all over the world to consume, and then you backdoor that entertainment with... The entertainment is revolved around food, and that data, we're openly sharing data of like how to run an urban farm, how to grow healthier food, how to be healthier.
Right.
And that is educational, and it's just like something that people can purchase with their attention. They watch it on TV, which so many people watch TV, and you're giving them a value that they are consciously saying, I want to watch TV. So they purchased it, and then you've educated them, you're making them healthier, and that could be a revenue stream for this place to also fund it. And now the problem with this model is, if that is how this place succeeds, I don't know if a ton of other farms are going to be able to replicate that. But it's almost like that game of like millionaires teaching you how to be a millionaire, but they're not actually millionaires, they're just pretending to be millionaires. And so it's like, it's just another diverse revenue stream that I feel like could support.
So here's the thing, though. Here's the problem. Unless you're gonna, that's a good place to kind of wind this down. You have to make the decision. Even your concept, if you let that concept out of the bag, you'll lose. You will give away the concept. Meaning, if you're altruistic to the sense that you want to use this site to educate and grow people, that's great. But if you start selling this site and it's fun and you start Netflixing it and you start getting these characters and these different people that are farmers, and you start, somebody else with a lot deeper pocket will just go buy 5 acres someplace in Cleveland.
But it's not this
I know,
farm.
It isn't this farm. This farm has so much history.
That's what I'm saying. So like the history element of how this place is going to evolve and how it's been evolved.
Right.
You can't replicate this. So,
and we'll talk about that next time. Cool. Stay tuned. All right. How do I send this to you?